This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. This is the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you guys in your business journeys. I'm your host, Daniela, and I'm Penji's partnership coordinator. And I'm joined here with a very special guest, Amanda Rivera. Hi, Amanda. How are you? Actually, I have you as Amanda Rivera, but you just wrote Renew.
Yeah, I got married. It's all good.
I'm sorry, Amanda R.
Yeah, it's the same R.
Amanda R. How are you, Amanda? It's great to have you here.
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on the podcast today, too. But before we sort of get started, Amanda, I want to give you the space to introduce yourself and tell us, and all of our viewers who are not familiar with you, who you are, what you're all about.
Totally. So, hi, my name is Amanda. I am a business systems mentor and fractional COO, and I'm all about helping you get the long-term impact and freedom you set out to get when you started your business through making your business simpler with team support and automations.
Awesome. Thank you. That was such a great,
I used to be a PR coach, so I have a master's in corporate PR. So
oh, that's why you're just like the
yeah, we got our 30-second pitch.
I've talked to people who will be like, oh, this and that, and then like they're very professional, but they really struggle with like the self intro. You were so, so great. Before we start though, I do have, obviously we are going to talk about amazingly great educational stuff today, but we do have a game prepared. It's called Guess the Stat. So Amanda, I'm going to share some stats with you from our marketing industry, what we both work in, and I want you to guess the correct number. Okay.
Good.
I know that obviously I don't know these by heart, so we'll just see how
I'm
it goes.
probably gonna mess up on these two.
We'll see. I'm going to do a couple. We're not okay. So, here's the first question that I have for you. Okay, this is the first stat. If a website takes more than 3 seconds to load, how many or what is the percentage of visitors that will abandon the website or the page?
I think it's like 80 or 90%. I know it's like a really high number. Harvard Business Review did a study on attention spans, and it was like an alarmingly high number. How quickly people will leave your website if it takes forever to load.
Yeah, it's 40% for 3 seconds. I'm guessing it gets bigger for more than 3 seconds. But yes, it is a very big number. Very, very, very terrifying, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's also like different generations too. So I think older generations, they'll stick around longer. So it depends on like your demographic, but younger generations are like, nah, I'm good.
Now, speaking of younger generation, on average, how many times more engagement does TikTok generate compared to Instagram?
I want to say TikTok is going to have a higher number than Instagram. Engagement. Let's play with big numbers, 10.
No, it's 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 times. So TikTok has 2 times more the amount of engagement than Instagram, interestingly enough. I don't know any of these stats either, so I was guessing them
Yeah,
myself.
I'm like,
They're completely new to me too, and like I work in marketing, so that makes me a bad marketer, but they're new to me
Well,
too,
the
right?
stats are always evolving too as platforms
Yeah.
evolve as well.
So it's also not like a one size fits all type of thing. And I think we're gonna do one more
Mhm.
and we can move on to the question. Okay. So can you tell me what is the percentage of consumers that say that they have purchased something directly from a social media platform?
Ooh. Well, through TikTok Shop, I feel like that number has really increased and made people really comfortable with especially with e-commerce. I don't work in e-commerce, so I'm not gonna have this stat. I work with coaches and service providers. So let's just say 70%, 60%.
That's the best one that you got. You got the closest to that one is 55%. Uh,
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome.
yeah, I got these from HubSpot. Apparently, it's 55% of consumers say that they've bought something directly from social media, and I was thinking about the same thing when I saw it, 'cause I was like,
Yeah, because I was thinking TikTok Shop made it,
yeah.
like, way more accessible.
Yeah, because I feel like I don't really purchase I think the only 2 social media websites where I purchase things are TikTok and Facebook. Because like, Facebook at this point, at least for me, has become strictly for market because I don't
Yeah.
a platform at all. Um, and, probably, yeah, TikTok Shop, which is huge. I mean,
Mhm.
there's everything is linked to, like, Amazon storefronts and just, like, everything is on TikTok Shops.
Totally. It's like a second Amazon.
For real, yeah. So, you did great with that, Amanda. Um,
Thank
obviously,
you.
would be now the moment for you to give it the correct answers for everything.
Love it.
So, let's get started with the podcast. Now, I have some questions that I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you. I obviously did my research on you. Um, and the first thing that I wanted to ask you was about sort of your journey as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. You started this at a very young age. And you started this from kind of a darker place in your life. Like you had faced
Yeah.
losses and it sort of like came into what you do now as business. Um, how have these sort of pivotal moments shaped your approach to being a business owner into life? And, how do these moments take you to do all of that?
Yeah, so in terms of, like, when I started my business, I started in October 2013. I also got married in October 2023, so 10 years later.
Wow, wow. So
Yeah,
how
so it happened the same month. Like, yeah.
not to like age, like if you're not comfortable telling us your age,
Oh,
I'm
34.
but I'm curious how old. So you were 24 when this happened.
23.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mm,
And
23.
then, so turning 35 June of this year, technically. Yeah. As you get older, have you noticed, like, you forget your name? I'm like, after 30, I'm like, I'm trying to remember my age. Okay, yeah,
I'm
35 in
always
June,
I
June
always
14th.
ask that. He's always like, what did my birthday this year? How old am I? And I'm like, Mom, you're 60 something. You're like
Yeah.
7.
Exactly, yeah, that's where I'm at. So, I started when I was 23. Um, it started out as a blog. So I had a death in the family that was very shocking because it was for somebody who happened, it was very young and it was unexpected. So it's not like we planned for it or knew that she was going to be dying. Um, but she contracted meningitis and went into a coma and she never woke up from it. And she was 22 at the time to my cousin Jessica, and, um, at the time, I remembered and I said at her funeral, at the eulogy, like, "We wanna be able to say that we lived a full and expansive life." I was in my master's program, just gotten out of it, and kinda, like, trying to figure out what I was gonna do with my career and my life, and the idea of being stuck in a 9 to 5 job and not having as much time with my loved ones. Because when you're in a 9 to 5 job, it's not just 9 to 5, like, it's the commute to get to your job, and then it's the commute to get home, and by the time, like, you're working through the week, you're literally working your whole week away. And so maybe you see your family and loved ones on the weekends. Maybe you might see them very quickly before you eat and go to bed at night. And, we're not all guaranteed a lifetime. That's what I learned from her death. And I don't want to go through life wishing I would have been able to spend more time with my family and loved ones because of work. So that's where entrepreneurship started getting more interesting to me and kind of just went into it with curiosity. I also couldn't find a job. I had gotten a master's degree and like all this student loan debt, and I couldn't find a job at the time. And I was like, I want to do what I went to school for. So I just started asking people if they need like website or PR for like just random like businesses. I was like, I'll even do it for free just to build up a portfolio. And I just realized I really love the flexibility of it. I loved like, getting to meet different people. And I just fell into the gateway drug of entrepreneurship.
Right.
Yeah. It's like once you get that first, like, paycheck when I first got paid, I believe it was a $600 website at the time. I was like, "This is so cool." I got paid to do something on the internet. Um, and yeah, it just kinda grew and expanded from there. And so what's been core at the mission, and I've done different things along the path and tried different businesses along the path. But what's been core at the mission is just making sure we have businesses that give us time freedom and we're able to put the mission driven impact God put on our hearts to put out in the world. So whether I was doing SEO WordPress websites and charging $600 for them when I first started out, to PR coaching, branding coaching, and now doing like business systems and fractional COO. This is the work like I do. It's helping people have simpler businesses.
I'm sorry, I mute myself sometimes
Mhm.
because like there's a lot of noise outside and I forget to unmute
No
myself.
worries.
Um, yeah, I think it's really interesting what you mentioned specifically about working in 9 to 5. That might be a little bit bit of a tangent, but it's true. Um, People don't talk about how you will basically not just spend those 8 hours at work. It's about 4 or 5 more hours of work from just I mean, I remember I'm working remote right now, but when I was
Mhm.
office work, it was like I would open my eyes and the first thing in your mind is I have to go to work. I have to get there at a certain time because I have a meeting at a certain time. Like you are living basically for your job. You're doing everything according to being able to be there on time. You're dressing to look a certain way to fit into the office that you are working in, depending
Yeah.
on the culture of that place. And so like your attire, your makeup, your just everything is around work. And that is what comes first and everything else comes second until you get out of the office. And then it's like, right.
And then also if you are in a toxic work environment, then you're ruminating and thinking about it over the weekend, and you're ruminating and thinking about it at night. And, you're getting the Sunday scaries, which is like you're anticipating what you're gonna be faced with inside of Slack or inside of the office on Monday. So doesn't mean that, like, entrepreneurship is for everybody. I don't believe entrepreneurship is for everybody. It takes a certain type of personality to be an entrepreneur and to, like, go and get your own sales and go and get your own clients. Like, that takes a certain personality. Um, Especially in the beginning, as you grow and scale, you could, hire out more. But, uh, if entrepreneurship is on your heart, there are pathways to make it way more simpler and easier to maintain. And there's so many amazing softwares out there that make running a business 10 times easier than what it was like when I was coming into the game in 2013.
Totally. I mean, you were like a veteran. I mean, maybe not from like, because I've talked to people who like have been doing internet stuff since like the 2000s, and like that's completely different. But I feel like 2012 to 20, like I think 2010 to like maybe 2015 were kind of setting a basis or a foundation to how marketing was going to be.
Evolve, yeah, and
Like,
personal brand businesses too.
yeah, they were doing the baby steps of what was going to be now, with like YouTube coming up. It was kind of like the beginnings of Instagram. They were sort of like setting the stage for how social media was going to be influential in the future.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of like giving you an idea. Like all of these platforms have changed, new ones have evolved, but I think like it really sort of like you started at a time where everything was sort of starting to really gain traction. And I think 20s, early 2010s was when people were starting to be less afraid of the internet. Because I remember being a kid in the 2000s, I was a kid in the 90s. I was too young for that, but I do remember, like, in the 2000s, my parents were very wary of me being on the internet, because they didn't trust it. They were like, "Well, children shouldn't be there," and they had, like, these horror stories of, like, um, I was gonna get kidnapped and, like,
Yeah.
and murdered and all of these things, and, like, I think, like, in the 2010s is when I remember, like, that fear sort of went away, and with that fear, you saw an influx of people and thus an influx of businesses sort of flocking towards the internet. If Correct me if I'm wrong, that's just, like, my experience.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I think I remember getting grounded for penguin chat back in the day. There was, like, a penguin chat, like, me and, like, my brother and my other cousin was, like
On
they're like, "You gave addresses away on penguin chat," which we never did, but
Yeah, no,
yeah.
like, people didn't really understand how it worked because my mom genuinely thought that me having a boyfriend on Penguin Chat meant that I was dating a 50-year-old man, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Mom, I don't think 50-year-old men are playing Club Penguin."
I know, it was a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, it was like I've been looking. But I mean, I know that you
Mm,
you obviously have sort of seen this kind of like change and evolution because I think once it started, it sort of just moved really quickly. Like you saw like marketing for. I think we saw influencer marketing, affiliate marketing really sort of. I don't know if influencer marketing was a thing before that. Um,
oh, yeah, it was a thing, influencer marketing, I would say, 2015, 2016 was when it started to get really popularized,
yeah,
and so with, like, brand sponsorships and was a big thing.
yeah, it was a big thing. I think if
Yeah.
we were like influencers in 2016, remember there's like also a lot of drama that started happening.
Yeah, like, with the makeup community.
Yeah, with the makeup stuff, like they really just kind of like really
Full of
affected,
glam.
and it just affected marketing in a way because if you think about it, specifically with the beauty community, whatever products they were promoting, whatever makeup, like, that, like, extremely caked look with, like, the baking and all of that, that
Yeah,
that was our basis of, "Oh, this is what makeup is supposed to look like, and these are the products that they're using, so I'm gonna go up out and purchase them too so that I can also do that look." Um, and I can imagine it was probably really good for businesses to have these people promoting whatever brow product they were using or the blush or
true.
foundation.
True,
Yeah.
true.
But, I did wanna ask you because I know that, you sort of got that place and you started in 2013, but in 2016, you did sort of create that Facebook group called Millennial Thought Leaders Mastermind.
Yeah.
And that one did really well. It was very successful for you. It went viral and you had a lot of people sort of.
Yeah, it got featured in Forbes, BBC News, Business Insider, Huffington Post, all these different places.
That's like
But this is so huge, and this is something I would love for your audience to really embody and hear.
Mhm.
Timing. It was the timing of it. Facebook Live had just gotten released a couple of months before all of that happened. So when I got featured in Forbes and it was like female marketer grows a Facebook group and uses Facebook Live to grow it, right?
Mhm.
Uh the BBC news journalist was Googling, so this is where SEO comes in, was Googling Facebook Live. And so Forbes is going to stack higher on Google than a regular person's website. And so that's where it kind of media stacked from there. So if you see a new feature on a social media platform, get really good at it and then pitch media on it. And then you can get media stacking, especially when something's new.
That's true. Yeah, no, no, no. I think that's where a lot of people have seen success because, like, you saw it on Facebook Live, and like you said, it was streaming. Because I don't think Facebook Live would probably give. You were trying to do that again right now. It would like,
It's not, it wouldn't be the thing, but because it was a brand new feature and people were
yeah.
like
Mm.
the BBC News article, I laugh at it, like, it was, the title was "The Risk and Rewards of Live Streaming." Like looking at it now, it's like, it's so cheesy, but, like, it was because it was new, like, for AI is new, for example, so, um, any new features that pop up on AI, you could do something similar.
No, totally. And like, I think like what's really interesting to me is that that has happened too. I think we saw a surge of creators becoming very popular, as well as small business owners getting popularity on TikTok because they jumped on it in 2019, 2020,
Yeah.
still new. And kind of cringy because I remember people were like kind of judgmental about people who were doing TikTok and
They're just dancing to music. Like, and that's
but they did the same thing that you did, they jumped into a new platform that was, like, sort of emerging, and they were able to make something out of that. And a lot of people didn't jump into it until they saw that it was popular, and then it was like, "Oh, okay, now it's socially acceptable for me to do this, let me do it," and they were not the first ones there to sort of gain that traction, like you said.
yeah, when you're, like, first to market, you're gonna get, a lot of traction on whatever feature it is, being first to market and just going really deep in it. So whether it is, like, a daily challenge to really become embodied in that new feature or, do something unique or different with that feature, uh, don't be afraid to be a little braggadocious about that and go pitch a media outlet what you did. A lot of times they'll either say, "No, weirdo, back off," or they'll say, "Oh, this is a cool, interesting spin on something that's new. Let's go with it."
Yeah, and I mean, I always say, like, you already have that "no" kind of, um said to you, right? Like, if it's gonna be a failure, that's already guaranteed. That's not
Mhm.
happen, but you don't have the guarantee of success. And you always have to sort of see where that takes you.
Yeah, and then I think the biggest piece too, and this is what actually led me into business systems and fractional COO work. So, when I was doing PR coaching, something I saw over and over and over again is most businesses were not ready for PR. Like, most businesses were not ready to go viral. Most businesses were not ready for massive visibility because they didn't have the back end systems prepared for that. So if you don't have like different funnels or digital products or scalable passive offers, if you get a lot of virality or get featured in a big way, it kind of falls flat. Like you don't make the most of that opportunity. So when you are pitching media or when you are doing podcasts or when you are like, going bigger in your content marketing or vice versa, also do the operations behind the scenes work to hold the container of what you're going to call in. Like the difference between a puddle and the ocean is its container.
Yeah, it's true. Um,
Mhm.
that's really, really important. And I think a lot of people sort of have struggle with figuring out that idea of, where does all of this fit into? I think it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
Much information that we have nowadays. People just kind of like get all of it at once, and then they're like, "What do I do with this?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the biggest thing I would share in terms of what to focus on. I think that's the hardest thing at any stage of business, whether you're just starting out or you're seasoned entrepreneur is knowing what to focus on at any given moment because there are a million and one ways to grow an online business. There's a million and one ways to deliver services and there's only so many things you can focus on at a time
Yeah,
and
no,
really grow and build it. And just being really crystal clear on what to focus on next is literally the difference between spinning your wheels for years versus growing and scaling.
no, Amanda, I wanted to ask you because
Mhm.
I think a big part of your brand and who you are was how you talked about, and we talked about this earlier in the podcast.
Mhm.
That's how you transition from that 10-hour work week, like just obsessive working to
Yeah.
automating a business and kind of having a different kind of schedule. How were you able to adapt to that change? Because I think, like, in a way, I feel like even though we complain about the 9 to 5, we are also slaves to structure. We see way too many people who wanna sort of end that type of, like, going off on their own, and they just get overwhelmed by not being able to manage their time properly, and then that kind of lack of a "you have to be there at 9 and then leave at 5" structure really makes them struggle.
Yeah. This is where oh my god, just recorded an audio for my membership on this. This is where like compounding, the compound effect comes into play. So, highly recommend reading the book The Compound Effect and adding recurring tasks and recurring personal routines to help you acclimate and do the things that are going to grow your business consistently. So, when we don't have personal routines and when we don't have recurring tasks in our business, we're going to flop and flounder depending on our energy levels. So, if you are feeling like gung ho, I'm going to go all in my business, but then next week you're having an energy dip and you're doubting yourself and second guessing, if you have personal routines and if you have recurring tasks in your business, you have a more stable business because you always know what to focus on to grow your business. And you always have what you need to do your inner work to be available to do the action work. So, personal routines can look like having like a mindset journaling practice every day or exercising, or it can look like doing somatic practices and breathing exercises, anything that gets you into a good feeling state. Um, you know, reading your Bible or like, praying, like doing your inner work first and then um doing the actions that lead to sales and that lead to delivering high quality services to your clients. So every business needs LNS. That stands for leads, nurture, sales. So leads meaning how are you attracting people to even know that you exist like, and
Yeah, I
growing
mean,
your audience.
yeah.
Nurturing is, delivering on your services, delivering high valuable like content to nurture your audience and, help them get amazing transformations. And then sales is the actual conversion event that helps people go from, hi, I'm following you and you're cool to, hi, I just bought from you and this is a really awesome program. And so just making sure all 3 of those areas are pretty solid as you grow. Mhm.
That's really interesting because I think, like, that's, I feel like that's such a struggle for people too. When it happened to me after college, I feel like I had lived with a structure that had been given to me my whole life, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Um, kind of, you're a kid and then your parents choose for you until you have like consciousness of mind until you're like old enough to remember stuff, but they're still making, and then you can make choices of like, okay, I like ice cream.
Yeah.
Choices, right? But I feel like overall my life, the way that my life was going had already been sort of set up for me, which was kind of like you're gonna go to kindergarten, then you're gonna go to elementary school, and then you're gonna go to like high school. And then from high school, I still feel like I automatically thought like, okay, what am I gonna study in college? I didn't really sit down and ask myself, do I want to go to
Mhm.
college? I knew that that was the step that I had to take because it's kind of like society kind of has established that as like for most people, that's the next step that you're taking, right? Like you're gonna go and study something else and have a major. And I kind of followed all of those steps without thinking too much about it because that's just how I felt like my life had been set up to be. And then once I graduated from college, it was just like open space.
What do I fill it with? Yeah.
It was like, what now? It's just there's no structure for me anymore. And I think like I know that this is kind of like about my personal life, but I think it really kind of impacts business owners because when you stop sort of being given that structure by somebody else, and then all of a sudden it needs to come from you, it can be really overwhelming because then you're like, what? Like, I remember having jobs and then thinking, "Okay, but what's the purpose of this? What am I doing with this job? Where is this taking me?" Because I felt like I always had a goal when I was in school, which was to graduate or to, like, go on to the next grade or, like, get the next like, there was always something that I was working towards. But then once I finished that and I had the degree, I'm like, "Okay, what now? What is the purpose of this job?" And I think that that's really important when you have your own business, which is what you were talking about, which is sort of like being able to give that to yourself so that you can actually be productive.
Yeah. Ugh, that's so good. Like, I love how you use this example because that's like literally what a lot of us face, right? It's this open, flexible, technically freedom. So you like the mindset that comes up a lot, like with my clients, is um wanting to grow the business and wanting to do the things that grow it and the personal routines, but also balancing the freedom aspect because you did go into business for freedom and for impact. And so, kind of balancing those two initiatives at the same time, because if you work too much in the business, then where's the freedom? Right? And if you
Where we get the freedom.
yeah, and then if you don't work enough in the business, then where's the impacts, right? Because then you're kind of just spinning. So what I've noticed that has been really helpful is kind of breaking your day into like three chunks, essentially. And you can move these chunks around depending on your personal life and your different obligations and different experiences. But the chunks are personal, business, and relationships. So personal is like inner work, somatic work, exercising, making sure your cup is filled. Business is doing sales activities, delivering on the services you promise for your clients, and then working on how to make your business more efficient so you can get more done with less time. Those are the three questions you get to ask yourself each day. And then the third category is relationships, which is pouring into your community. Maybe if you have a partner, connecting with them and deepening with them, connecting with family and loved ones and social life, because you're just going to feel happier, like,
Yeah.
having relationships where, communal people, right? We're a
We
communal species.
we still are social creatures.
Exactly, yeah. And so if you kind of break your day into those 3 categories, and even if it's just doing one thing in those 3 categories a day, you're gonna create a compounding effect of momentum, and your life is gonna naturally optimize in a more positive direction as you're filling up all these cups.
Yeah, it definitely is like I think we don't talk enough about I feel like I've talked on the podcast a lot about sort of actual strategizing with people like, oh, like this is gonna do numbers for lead generation and like the sales funnel and FBO and those things are great. They're strategies, but they're so focused on just work. Um
Mhm.
I think we don't give it enough importance to what everything outside of work needs to be in check so that your work is also going to be good.
Yep.
Um, it happened to me and my co-host on the podcast when we were taking way too many calls a day for filming, to the point where it wasn't sustainable for us because we were like filming at that point, like, I don't know, 5, 6 podcasts a day with different people. I couldn't even keep tabs of who was
Who was who? Yeah.
who am I talking to right now?
Mhm.
What do they do? What was this podcast about? And just like I would be late for every call because I'd be like finishing another one and then have to jump into the next one. I don't even have time to get up, go to the bathroom and pee. And I have to talk in these podcasts. So my throat was dry. Like all of these things that were sort of piling up. And then we realized like maybe we shouldn't be filming 7 episodes a day. And then, you do have to keep your personal life sort of or your personal needs are just as important. You're socializing with people, all of these things in check so that your work is not going to be affected by it.
Yeah, it's the sustainability factor, right? Um, Anybody can hustle to 7 figures. Like, if we say that out loud, you might be going like, "Man, what are you talking about?"
Yeah.
But technically, you could hustle to 7 figures, but the reason why it hasn't happened yet is you don't want to hustle to 7 figures. You don't wanna be putting in, like, 14, 15-hour days, not going to birthdays, not going to family parties, putting your health at risk, and, just to hit a number that you might not be able to sustain once you hit it. So it's like our bodies intuitively know, um, if we can handle something or not. And so the work we get to do is building up our capacity to handle what we're going after, right? Fear is Dr. Suzanne Jeffers from Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways, that book. She talks about fear is just a limiting belief that you can't handle whatever's coming next. And what I would build upon with that is most sales issues or most business issues is just the fear of can you handle what comes after the sale? So I could come up with a wild claim right now and get 50 people into like a one-on-one program, but I would be burnt out with 50 one-on-one calls a week.
Yeah, I don't
And then I would like want to burn my business to the ground.
it
Um,
makes sense at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I've seen people do this and they've grown fast, but then they also hate their lives and hate their businesses and are going through crazy hire fire freak out cycles because they don't have the time or capacity to train an onboard team because they stuffed their calendars so tight. So when you are growing and scaling your business, we just got to keep in mind that we're a full human and we gotta make sure we do have space for the other areas as we're growing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's gonna be hell if you don't. And
Yeah, yeah. It's like, I something I teach my clients is don't sell beyond your capacity. And if you do, then we have to kind of hustle it out a little bit for a while to build up the capacity of your team to
balance.
take it on.
No,
But just do capacity audits before you go into a launch and go like, "Hey, I wanna hit 20 more people than I normally do in my mastermind." Okay, check your business operations and see if you can physically handle 20 more people. Okay, do you need to bring on a support coach? Like, what are the steps we need to put in place before we go after that goal so that you can do it more comfortably?
it happened to me, So I tried to do that. This is like I'm gonna try to end it here, but
Mhm.
tried in college. I wanted to make extra money. And I figured because I really liked baking, I was like, I'm gonna start a baking business. Uh,
Yeah.
it was a new homemade, like, baked goods. Like I was starting brownies and cookies. It wasn't anything special, but in my head, I was like, this is a gold mine because like everybody wants us and I'll sell it so cheap. Um, it kind of was. It also was hell. Um, it got so popular that I couldn't handle it. I was one girl baking in my tiny oven in my apartment, for a bunch of people. I had this lady ask me to make her like an anniversary cake. And she had all of these sort of like I wasn't even a professional baker, it was just a hobby. So presentation was not even like my best part of it. And she had asked me for an anniversary cake. I ended up not delivering the cake and I had to like text her the day of the anniversary, like, hey,
No.
it was a terrible business. I mean, I felt, like, so bad for her because she ended up not having her anniversary cake, and I quit shortly after that. I just stopped doing it because I wasn't even making money. Like, when I put into perspective the amount of money that I was actually getting back from all of the time and just investment that I was doing financially was just not enough for it to be sustainable for me. I couldn't do it. And I think it was just because I hadn't actually thought it through. I kind of was just
Mm.
like, I'm gonna sell my brownies. And so, like you said, I wasn't prepared for the amount of people that I were actually going to want it and how I didn't have a life. I just lived for baking. I ended up hating it. It was not my I legit stopped baking for about 6 months of my life after that.
No.
You can buy it at Walmart.
Yeah, it's very easy for people to fall out of love with their mission and their work in the world, not because it's not their mission or work in the world too, but because like they they oversold their capacity and they might not have like business operations support in place to help them navigate that capacity edge or the inner mindset support you would need to help navigate different capacity edges. And sometimes it's just not the right thing. Sometimes the pricing is off, sometimes the packaging is off. But even if you just take one day, one day before you go into the sale to just evaluate those pieces, does the pricing feel aligned? Does the delivery packaging feel aligned? Is the why behind it like something I really care about? Like, and then before going into selling, like,
That's
it
it.
help yeah, it helps you're gonna keep growing, but you're gonna grow more sustainably, and there's no shade on growing fast either, you know, virality happens, like, sometimes we can't prepare for things, right? But when you have the right tools in place, you can navigate those and also having a lot of sales, that's a good problem to have, you can navigate it and move through it.
Yeah, and I think I think it's a great note to end this on, which is just kind of being able to get through all of these rainstorms through a business. Obviously, don't follow my example. I was a 19-year-old dumb college kid.
Well, we
But
yeah, we all learned it.
and like you said, I didn't even think about everything that was involved. I just was like, I'm selling desserts on Instagram, guys. um,
When I was doing websites, I literally had, like, a website that lasted for, like, a year and a half because I had no scope. They didn't write in the contract. This is the parameters of the website, so they just kept adding more things and more things.
Oh my gosh, no, yeah, it happens to all of us, like, that
Yeah.
failure. It's the lady for her anniversary cake is watching. I'm so sorry. I hope your anniversary it was not a good day for me, okay?
No.
But thank you so much, Amanda, for being here. It was so great to have you on the podcast. Before we end it, though, I do wanna give you the space to promote anything that you want to promote, plug anything. If anything that we spoke about today resonated with our audience, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, thank you for having me on the show. Thank you to your audience, sending them all so much love. I do have a gift for your audience. So if they want a 30K launch prep kit, so this is launch prep kit has Canva templates and it also has Loom videos on how to set up different order forms and how to organize your social media content for your launches and get like a social media launch up to date if that excites them. Plus, it has different launch strategies that have really worked for my clients for them to have 30K launches. If that excites them, I'm going to drop the link for it with you guys and they can grab that free launch prep kit.
Awesome. Yeah, I will be adding these links to the description of the video. Thank you so much for the gift that you gave our audience.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And
Thank
thank
you
you so
all.
for being on the podcast today, Amanda. It was great to have you.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Really fun. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.